You're tuned into Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock.
And I said that anybody who challenges me on that, the first thing I ask them is, give me the example. Where is it? Do you have the evidence?
Don't do the crime. This is what you must do. In other words, you have to provide opportunity.
We still manage to keep education growing, to keep the economy afloat. No banks failed. Crime reduced.
City Services invested another $1 million in their facility.
You know, Martin Luther King says the only thing that counts is the content of your character.
Hello and welcome to another edition, exciting edition I might add, of Nation Building. On our program, we examine the political, social, and moral issues in the leadership of the Bahamas. And on our program today, we have a young, dynamic, and exciting senator from the opposition side. We'll introduce her when we come back from this break.
Time is money, and when you need more of both, fly Western Air. 12 flights daily between Nassau and Freeport. At Western Air, your 11th round trip is always free. Flights to Marsh Harbor coming soon.
Said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price. If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama Coconut Milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahama's fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna win. No, no, I don't wanna win.
Well, as an Alive customer, I've really come to enjoy the national roaming that Alive provides. It makes sure that I'm in touch with the people I need to be in touch with at all times, almost no matter where I am in the Bahamas. Recently, while traveling on a youth trip, I had the opportunity to use my Alive phone. Service was great, impeccable. The place where I was at didn't have internet access, so I was able to use my Alive phone for that to make sure I stayed in touch with email, even watching a movie on the phone. I also like that Alive has become such a great corporate citizen. After the hurricane, Alive was very generous with persons from the Southern Islands who were impacted. And at a time when it was really difficult for them, came through with phones for them that they can stay in touch with their loved ones. Phones that when they go back home, they can continue to be in touch with their loved ones because Alive has their islands covered.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Hello and welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and today we have a lively and what I believe will be a very provocative discussion with Senator Jobeth Coleby-Davis from the Progressive Liberal Party. Ms. Davis, welcome to Nation Building.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's your first time here.
Yes.
But I have been told that you are a firebrand.
Okay.
So I hope I don't get beat up for beating up on you today. But we're going to have a talk and about your political party and also your personal life. But we'll want to get started by, you are young.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how old are you? But you're free to say that at some point if you want to. But I wanted to find out a little about you as a person. I believe you are a professional woman.
Yes.
What do you do?
I'm an attorney by profession. I was called in 2010 in London and also in the Bahamas. And as soon as I returned, I went and worked with an oil company. So my specialty is energy law and policy. That's what I have my master's in. But originally born here in Freeport, Grand Bahama, and after some time having, Hurricane Andrew, I think, is the storm that kind of took a shift in Freeport for the first time, took a big hit on the economy. And so my parents moved us away. We stayed for some time in Georgia, where my grandmother and two of my aunts live. Then we moved to Turks and Caicos, where my grandmother's originally from. And then I came here for school, so I studied at COB before I went off.
What is now UB?
UB, yes. Then I went off to England to finish up, and I wanted to come back home and work and live, and so came back here, got my job, met my husband, and I'm home.
So you've been a globe trotter.
Yes, in some
Even
way.
though you're still a young lady, very young lady. So you've been around. You talked about being from Freeport, I guess our mutual hometown. I didn't know that. You were born in Freeport proper, or
yes,
one of
I
the
was
outskirts?
born
In Freeport.
yes.
And you lived in Freeport for how long?
Until I was 9 years.
Okay.
So then that's when we moved over.
You moved to Nassau, and so where did you go to school? To high
Walter
school?
Parker. Well, I went to Walter Parker in Freeport. That was the primary school. And then when we went to Atlanta, I went to Woodland Middle School, and then I went to Banneker High School. And then when we moved to Turks and Caicos, I finished up at Clement Howell.
Was it very disruptive for you, having moved around in your early days in school?
You know what? The first part and the last part, I would say the first end and the tail end, first, the beginning of it was because you're coming from this Commonwealth system of learning, and then you're going to an American system of learning, which was completely different. So the middle school transition was hard, and then I got used to the way of teaching and settled myself there. And then when we moved back to Turks and Caicos, it was very British. They don't even do grades, they do forms. So it was fourth form, fifth form, and trying to understand that system. And then they don't do BGCSEs, they do CXE.
And GCEs.
Yes, and so that was kind of like having to get back into the flow of things. So I think it helped me to become more adaptable to change, because I had to change and understand the systems in order to pass.
And interestingly enough, for those young people who look at persons such as yourself as an example, and there are many that can be mentioned in government as well. The Free National Movement has a young group, a lot of young people. When persons look at you and look at your background, one wouldn't know, hearing you giving firebrand speeches in the Senate, wouldn't know that you had this background of traveling, living in the Bahamas, in the US, in Turks and Caicos, in the UK. And you said your grandmother, maternal or
maternal,
was from TI?
Yes.
Which one?
My grandmother, my maternal, she's
is
from
Turks
Grand Turk.
Okay. And so your paternal side of the family?
From Nassau, Francis.
Okay. Okay. So you obviously married a Davis.
Yes.
Good. So interesting history, and obviously you battled your way through law school, have a
Yes.
master's degree, qualified woman. Where did you get your desire to, any thoughts in your early days that you might enter politics?
None whatsoever. And that's what's still so shocking, not only for me, but my husband and my family. I mean, you can see that I have capabilities to advocate for things that I'm passionate about. And so everyone would have attributed that to the legal side of my training, but no one would have seen politics being included in it because there wasn't actually a particular interest. What I would say is when I returned from law school, I made it a purpose of mine to assist my party in the legal team that would be set up for elections, and also in helping to train poll workers based on the election acts and the laws and stuff. And so that's what I did, and that was extracurricular for me.
So you didn't stumble into politics. You said your party. You are an opposition senator.
Yes.
For the PLP. There is any number of people more seasoned than you are, and maybe as much, and some might argue more qualified than you are to represent, but your party's leader chose you, which begs the question first, why initially did you choose the Progressive Liberal Party as an organization to be a part of?
Well, first, which is almost the norm in most situations, I grew up hearing about the Progressive Liberal Party from my grandmother. I grew up hearing about stories of Pinland, what he did, what his legacy meant for the Bahamas, what he fought for, and the change that he brought with him. And then if you go back into our history and you look at situations like the majority rule, how that came about, what they fought for. And so I think it was the rich history, the core values, helping the downtrodden, the actual push that Pinland implemented and what he fought for, the meaning behind his legacy, is what interests me about
but some
the
would
party.
say, some would say, your point is well taken. Some would say that, and I would argue that a lot, maybe a majority, I'm not sure, but a lot of young people of the younger generation would more be aligned with the Free National Movement's history, simply because you will hear commonly use the term that, you know, the generation that understood that revolution that Pinland led, many of them have died,
Passed
and
away.
those are the older generation, and so you would hear talks in some quarters that, oh, the PLP is mainly made up of older people. And so it's surprising that a bright young person like yourself would refer to the reason for being a part of the PLP going back to that history. And I don't think you're old enough to firsthand know of that history.
No, I would have to read and research, which I did, but also the story of the party, the story of the persons that fought with the party, whether they later on left and joined the Free National Movement or joined another party. The story behind how all of this came about was through struggle, and from the struggle it came success. And so for me, I think that's what a lot of young persons, even if you don't appreciate the history, that's what our stories are, because we're still fighting with the old guard to even move up the chain to get what we rightfully deserve in any profession, in any area of the society. We still have that struggle to get a position and to place ourselves. And so that struggle and success story almost aligns me to feel as if I want to continue to work and help those who may come from that and want to have that story in the end.
And that's well stated, but I guess what I'm getting at is what makes you different from those of your generation that want, I don't want to say nothing to do, but maybe more easily aligned to what the Free National Movement offers, just in the sense of history now. We're not talking about current situation. We're saying, why would a young, bright person like you use that reason? That's the point. It's not the fact. They're young, brilliant people on both sides. We're talking about, why does Senator Bette Davis decide to go to the Progressive Liberal Party based on that history when a lot of young people can't even connect with that. And I hear you saying your grandparents, and I hear you talking about the history. What I guess I'd ask is it more driven by the history that was passed on to you, that generation, or is it driven by more your own assessment?
My assessment of what I think the legacy and the fight meant for why I am able to have what I have today in the Bahamas. And I appreciate and respect that. I think a lot of young persons don't align themselves with the Progressive Liberal Party because some of them probably don't like that story of struggle. Some of them don't want to affiliate themselves with the fact that you got to come from the bottom and get to the top. They just want to feel as if they're in a circle of prestige. And that's what you would have seen. You would have seen young persons who may have had a story of struggle, and once they arrive at prestige, they want to affiliate themselves with the Free National Movement because that looks more popular, favorable for them as a young professional to be aligned with this party that seems to have more prestige to it. Me, I'm not embarrassed of that story. I'm not embarrassed of the struggle where our party came from. And I'm happy to assist, to continue to assist with building the country, building the people, and helping them to understand that it's only for a moment. You don't have to stay there. And that's why I've aligned myself with that party, because I'm not trying to be one that came into my profession and now I think I'm too good.
Senator Jobeth, are you accusing the Free National Movement as an organization of not being a party for the downtrodden? Are you saying that, as you alluded, that many of your own professional people, attorneys and so on, align themselves, it seems to be popular? Are you saying that the party doesn't cater to those who are not, that the party caters to the professional class more so than?
I would say that the appearance of their values and the PLP core values, if you look at the PLP core values, it seems to be more aligned with assisting, helping, and uplifting the downtrodden. But if you would look at some of the values of this new F&M government, that is what they are now pushing. And it's okay. I don't want to say that they're not for the downtrodden, but that's not really what their values were about in the beginning. In the first instance, it wasn't. And so for me, the values of the PLP has always been for the downtrodden. Now, somewhere down the line, you may see that some administrations may have fell off, and the F&M, this new F&M, can take advantage and build a base from there on.
But
But I wouldn't say that they're not. I just feel like what our values are in our statements, what we believe in, what we push, is to assist the downtrodden, to make the connection from the lower class to the upper class, as opposed to diminishing a class.
So you're talking about philosophy, and so you buy into the philosophy of the F&M. When we come back
not the F&M.
of the Progressive Liberal Party. When we come back from our break, we'll talk about those values and get a little deeper into the politics of it all. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hello, I'm Wendell Jones, and every time I sit down and I watch JCN television, I drink the Jamaica Bahama fruit juice. It's so pleasing to the palate.
I've been cooking Bahamian dishes for generations. I now use Jamaica Bahamas product. The rice is very fluffy, very tasty, and good eating. Jamaica Bahama product is simply the best.
As an insurance agent, my life is go, go, go. But whenever I need a refreshing break, it's Jamaica Bahamas Island Mixed Fruit Drink. Good.
Hi, I'm Debbie Bartlett from GEMS 105.9 FM. The effect that Island Junkanoo Juice Medley has on me is exhilarating.
The concierge service is the best thing ever. Like, it is so fabulous, especially for someone like me where I cannot leave my office, my job, to go do anything in the middle of the day because I'm on the radio. The service was so fabulous. The ladies gave me a call. They set up an appointment. They come with their professional looking attire. They're just so cute. And they come here, and it was a great experience. It took 20 minutes to switch over to the Alive service. It was simple. It was easy. And they just made me feel so welcomed. They explained everything. They hooked me up with my new phone. They gave me my data package. As you can see, hey. And it was fabulous. It was a wonderful service, but what I really liked best about it was not only did they come here and make it easy for me, but they continued to check up on me. The next day, they made sure that everything was working properly with the phone. I didn't have any issues. The following week, they contacted me again, and I've built a relationship with them. They've continued to check up on me. I feel like I'm part of the Alive family. It's amazing.
Time is money, and when you need more of both, fly Western Air. 12 flights daily between Nassau and Freeport. At Western Air, your 11th round trip is always free. Flights to Marsh Harbor coming soon.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it. These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you. Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Hello and welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and we are here today with the Progressive Liberal Party's Senator, the Honorable Jobeth Davis. Senator Davis, yes. I'm sure our viewers will see that you are able to defend your positions. They mightn't all agree with your positions, but you certainly have, you didn't come to the table unprepared and certainly want to represent what you believe. The Progressive Liberal Party, your party, that you have been a part of for some time now, many say was guilty of parading young persons like yourself in the 2012 general elections, leading up to the 2012 general elections. The party was then led, of course, by former Prime Minister Perry Christie. Many television ads, glowing ads, running, talking about the next generation. And the country seem in large measure to, based on their vote, to have been disapproving, and the word on the street long before the election was a disappointment of not seeing more of this young generation being ushered further into leadership with a view to having them take over the country. I put it to you on behalf of those who share that view that you're just going to be another one of those young, bright Bahamians that the PLP just parades, puts on display, use your gifts and talents to allow the same generation, the same Christie generation, to rise to a place of leadership, and you'll just be relegated to somewhere, wherever they can place you, if the party is successful. Have you considered that, and for those who have that view, that point of view, what do you say to them?
I disagree with your view.
It's not my view. It's a view I'm presenting.
The view of those that you've presented to me, I completely disagree. I think what we've seen since the last election to now is we're in a state of repair, rebuilding, rebranding, and we understand the message that was sent to us clearly by the electorate. There must be change across the board in terms of how we govern and how we lead. And people want to see innovation. They want to see fresh ideas. They want to see modernization. And that's something that comes with this millennial brand. And I think they took a good percentage of the voting bloc this last election. And so clearly they want to see people they can relate to. Now, maybe in some ways the past administration would have fell down in pushing forward those persons who could be more relatable to the voting bloc of the millennials. But if you think about it now, the 13-year-olds today will be voting come next election. And so we have to keep up with the times if we want to see government, cabinet again. We have to keep up with the time. So it'll be an injustice to our party if we go down that road with just parading but not actually exposing, granting that experience and putting in leadership persons of my age who have the knowledge and just want the experience to help to build this country. It'll be an injustice to our party to go back down that road, if you say that's what the views say, that we've went down that road before, because in nation building, we have to go with the times, the change in times, and times have changed clearly. May 10, 2017, I'll never forget. Times have changed in the Bahamas.
Senator Davis, you make a good case, and I give it to you that you are well able, and I see why the leader of the Progressive Liberal Party chose you already to represent the party in the Senate. And you're doing, I think, a decent job at representing your party's view. But I don't know that you have gotten to the core of my question, which is, what guarantees do you have or have you been given as a young Progressive Liberal Party member who's been ushered into a frontline position that your generation won't be left behind as has happened in the past?
I think with what we've seen coming out of our convention, we have a new, sometimes I like to joke around with him and call him the newbie deputy leader, Chester Cooper, who is also young, vibrant, and modern for the people. And so we can relate to what's changing from the leadership aspect of the party, and we expect that to continue throughout as we are choosing candidates for the next upcoming general election. And so I'm convinced by what I'm seeing happening in the forefront and in the background. Nobody has to promise me anything. I'm here to assist my party in whatever capacity. And so I'm not sitting, waiting and hoping for them to continue to use and parade me just because I want the limelight. Whatever I can do to help in building my country, I will. And I think that's where all of us should come from, that mindset. First and foremost, if we want to build the country as a young person, that should be our first desire. And secondly, look at the leaders. Times are changing in the PLP and in the country. No one wants to be in a party where they can't relate. And we fell down in some aspects of that with the last administration. So now we have to make sure we are relatable. And so I don't think if they want to retain government, they will make...
You are a part of that, so you're saying they.
Well, I'm saying the people who are selecting the candidates, and I'm just one voice, okay? So let me pull that back in. If we want to retain government, there was a clear message that was sent by the electorate of what their new expectations of a new government in the Bahamas should be. And so if you understand the message, then you should be able to deliver a good response.
You are doing a good job seeking to convince the nation of what your position is. And my question to you on behalf of the nation is, are you putting these views to your leader?
Definitely. I am one. I think for me, I am one that can't, when I'm passionate about something, I can't pretend. I'm not a faker. And so if I feel passionate about ensuring the PLP set themselves up, that they retain government the next time around, my time will not be wasted if I'm not able to voice my opinion, one, and if I voice my opinion, I'm shut down or it falls on deaf ears. It cannot happen. We cannot expect to go the old route to achieve a new result. We must change.
Senator Davis, it seems to me that in a very diplomatic way, you are sending a shot across the bow to those in leadership of your party to be careful of young Turks like yourself.
Well, it isn't really a shot, you know, it's just reality. I mean, who would not see what's happened and try to figure out how to change it? If you want change, you can't be doing things the same way. And like I said, the mindset of the electorate have changed. The appetite of the electorate has changed. The way in which they view politics. You have more people watching the House and the Senate than ever before. You look on social media, you will see them discussing it as people are contributing, as people are debating. They're discussing what's happening in the country. So they are now tuned in to what the leaders and the government are doing in their country. So how can you ignore them saying, we want and expect different out of you if you want government? To ignore that will be a catastrophe to our party. And so, agreed, they must change it.
Interesting points that you are making. I'm not sure if the senior members or many of the senior members of your party that has been in the media in recent times echo similar sentiments, but I'll leave that there. Are you satisfied, Senator Davis, with the current system of government? You talk a lot about reforming your party and moving with the times and being I guess, not entrenched, but being in touch with the new generation of Bahamian. Are you satisfied with the overall system of government? It sounds to me, I must say, that you've made the point that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not satisfied with the party structure, so you want to see some things change there. Am I right in saying that? So then the question is, are you satisfied with the national system of government that we this Westminster system of government that we practice?
I respect it, for one, but what I would say is I wished in some ways we could have taken a chunk from how the U.S. elects their senators.
In what way?
We are chosen by our leaders, right? So you have 12 that's chosen by the Prime Minister in consultation with the Governor General and the Leader of Opposition, and then you have the 4 that's chosen the same way. So we have 16 in total senators, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the process for the governing side, there are some that has to be consulting.
Well, the independent
right,
will consult it, but then the other ones, he gets to pick 10, and then the 2 independent, who are not so independent, consultants.
It's the system.
The system, exactly. And the reason why I think that irritated me mostly when we debated the recent legislation, the Commercial Enterprise Bill.
The one that you opposed.
I opposed it because I made suggestions of certain amendments, which many of the senators on the governing side agreed the legislation should have been amended, but none of them were strong enough in their roles to oppose it outrightly and send it back. See, the senators, if we eject the bill, it goes back for fixing with our recommendation, which is something that I think should have happened. You know, some comments were made. If it was a definite 5 years, then maybe. That's how some people felt.
But Senator Davis, you are aware, even though a newcomer to Frontline, you are aware that the system and the practice in the country with the system we have is not one that has checks and balances. And so to expect those governing senators, those government senators, even though they might agree with you in the Senate, to expect them to, when it comes right down to it, to vote against a bill, to send it back, I mean, that's political
suicide. Not really, because it wasn't to send it back as a insult. It sent it back with certain amendments that would have been comforting to the Bahamian people.
So the bottom line you're saying is, what specifically would you like to see changed about the system?
Well, I think that if we were elected in some way to do that particular job, to guard the legislation of this country without feeling that we must take a particular position because of who appointed us, I think we would see more of an agreement in the Senate. Compromise, more so, of certain pieces of legislation or certain changes or certain amendments that could be incorporated. So for me, I always like to say, if we was able to take the politics out of politics for the 5 years.
You are having wishful thinking. You're watching Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock. We'll be right back with Senator Davis after this break.
Naturally, I was reluctant to start off with a new company initially. But since they went with Alive, I mean, all the problems I had in the past in terms of, blackouts, and sometimes you don't have service even though you're paid up. I'd go to the family islands, I can't make calls. But since I've had Alive, it's easy to comment that it's been considerably less expensive and the service has been remarkable. I work with a number of charities, Special Olympics, the Friends of the Blood Bank, and Alive has partnered with all of those organizations. And the contributions have been significant to the point now with the Friends of the Blood Bank. Without Alive, we wouldn't be as successful as we are.
Time is money, and when you need more of both, fly Western Air. 12 flights daily between Nassau and Freeport. At Western Air, your 11th round trip is always free. Flights to Marsh Harbor coming soon.
You're tuned into Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock.
And I said that anybody who challenges me on that, the first thing I ask them is, give me the example. Where is it? Do you have the evidence?
Don't do the crime. This is what you must do. In other words, you have to provide opportunity.
We still manage to keep education growing, to keep the economy afloat. No banks failed. Crime reduced.
City Services invested another $1 million in their facility.
Martin Luther King says the only thing that counts is the content of your character.
Hello.
Did you get it?
Yes, baby. I got it.
Don't come home without it.
These arms of mine, they are yearning for wanting you.
Where is it?
Strongback is distributed by Jamaica Bahamas Import and is available at your favorite food or convenience store nationwide. For more information, call 341-4091 in Nassau and 351-8282 in Freeport.
Who said you can't get great quality products at an affordable price? If you want the best quality food products at the most affordable prices, you must pick up the Jamaica Bahama brand of fine quality products at your favorite food store. Products like Jamaica Bahama Coconut Water, the most healthy and refreshing drink on the market. Jamaica Bahama Fruit Punch, the only fruit punch in the Bahamas made from real fruit. Jamaica Bahama coconut milk, green pigeon peas with coconut milk, condensed milk, kidney beans with coconut milk, corned beef, green pigeon peas, mackerel, and corn. Jamaica Bahamas' fine line of products is available at all your favorite food stores and convenience stores nationwide. Telephone 351-8282 in Freeport and 341-4091 in Nassau.
I don't wanna wait. No, no. I don't wanna wait.
Welcome back to Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock, and today we're having a lively, I believe, discussion with, and I think an informative one, with one of the Progressive Liberal Party's senator. They only have 4 senators in the upper chamber. Senator Jobeth Coleby-Davis. Senator Davis, I put it to you that as much as you are not comfortable with the method of the system in appointing senators, you might not have been in the Senate today if you had to go out and campaign to get there. So isn't the system doing some good in that it brings bright minds like yourself by being hand-chosen to the table?
I didn't say the system wasn't good. I just said in terms of the legislative part of our jobs, that's where I would like to see more leeway when we honestly know that something should be changed, something should be amended in certain bills before we pass them. I feel, for me as an attorney, I think that's attorney or the legal side of me coming out, that it's incomplete and we shouldn't accept it as is just because. And so that side of the argument is where I say it would have been better if there was something else that pushed us to actually work and fight for changes needed in legislations to help the Bahamian people and not just accept it as is. Because we make errors, draftsmen always have to make changes, so.
Sure. What about points of discussion that has gone on for probably more than 20 years about fixed election date? You know, the current Prime Minister has pledged, I believe, that they would, they'll put term limits on the office of Prime Minister. I don't know if there was any commitment for fixed election date. I doubt so. But what about things like fixed election date, term limits, and those kinds of reforms? Are you interested in those, or it's not really a matter of contention for you?
I'm a little on the fence with the term limits. You know, I look at it and I can understand why, on the one hand, you would say we should have term limits. But then if you look at the recent or the last 15 years in the Bahamas, even if people were given term limits, the Bahamian people decided their terms for them by deciding PLP this day, F&M.
Let me ask you one last question having to do with reforms or possibilities of reforms. Does it occur to you that there are many young, bright people on both sides of the political divide that fall by the wayside simply because of their political alignment? Meaning, whenever over the last 20 years we've changed government every term, whenever people get frustrated or fed up with the administration, and sometimes they have a beef where, for example, the Christie administration would have been accused strongly of going against the wishes and will of the people at the time by going against the gambling referendum. And I use that as an example, but there are many other things that people on both sides and both periods of the last 2 governments that people pick at. But I'm using that. So you would have had occasions where there were good people, maybe being effective members of parliament and so forth, that people just said, I don't want your party, or I don't want your leader. And so you have a tide rising and ebbing, and you go with the tide. Is that the future of our country?
You know, I always tell people it's unfortunate that that happens in our country, because honestly, if you look at our system of governance, 5 years is when you're just getting the ball rolling for your agenda, your plans for the country.
So why are you all so hard on the current government? If you think 5 years it takes to get you, why is why is your party so hard on this administration?
They don't have
months?
It's clear that they have yet to figure out what their plan is. That's how I see it. Okay. We're hard on them because we're waiting for them to tell us what is the direction you're taking the people?
So
Nobody said
you don't
it's
think
not.
they need about a year to get themselves together?
No, because the way you campaign is what people expect your governance to be like. So if you have this airtight campaign that's saying they're doing everything wrong, we're going to do everything excellent, we're going to do everything great, you can expect much from us, you are going to be required of much. And that's what I was speaking about earlier when I said, take the politics out of politicking. Because if you go in 5 years knowing you don't have a plan, why are you still bashing the government that got kicked out? We've already been served our cards. We've already been dealt what we had to be. The answers from the Bahamian people was no, your opposition. So now it's their time to govern, and we're seeing that it's become a struggle because honestly, I believe they didn't have a plan. And so when I say the 5 years is what it takes, we had a charter for governance that was well drafted, well put together, well built on what the Bahamian could expect from us, and we built on that charter for the next 10, 20 years of moving on from this charter. What else you will see building from our plans. And so a plan was there. Now we have to effect that plan. But it's a problem when the government of today comes in with no plan.
Senator Bette Davis, you would have heard recently the pronouncements by the Prime Minister of any number of projects. Some new ventures for Grand Bahama or
Yes, I heard them.
And they're billions of dollars
Billions.
projected to. You don't think that's a plan?
Oh yes, thanks to the PLP. Don't think that every time you hear something, it just landed on the table. These things were also in discussions.
But for the Bahamian people listening to you and watching you, I don't want you to just say thanks to the PLP just like that. How do the people know that what you're saying has any truth to it, that these projects that the PM is announcing or has recently announced, that has anything to do with
Okay, some of what would be announced would have already been in the works, because as you know, to get to a heads of agreement that incorporates millions and billions of dollars is not going to be overnight. We saw an article maybe a few months ago that discussed a heads of agreement coming out for this recent announcement made by the Prime Minister. And so one could look at that from the business aspect and think it's not going to be right away. It's not going to be easy. Now, of course, they may have incorporated new things that this new government may have required of the company, but I don't think it would have been an overnight process.
If we accept your argument, has the PLP been fair in when it took over the government in 2012? There are any number of things that the Ingram administration was alleged to have been working on, such as the hotel in Grand Bahama, the Lucayan Strip, and other things, other projects that the PLP just rode on in and said, we're rolling out this project, and they got credit for it. So I'm saying, did the PLP give credit to
Probably not. I'm not sure.
And
I wasn't a part of that administration.
So when you talk about the politics, it goes both ways. And
Yes, I agree. I agree it goes both ways. I'm just saying that we have done things that have been left in place, and to see them being rolled out, it's great, because at the end of the day, the Bahamian people is who we want to benefit. We want to better their lives. We want to bring changes to them. And so it's good for everyone.
Wonderful. Let me ask you, and as we begin to wind down, there's so much that I have left to ask you. Let's see how quickly we can get through them. As a young, progressive Bahamian, why look to the now opposition leader, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis, who is seen by many as a part of the old generation and the old guard and so forth? Why look to him with such confidence, as you talked about earlier, to lead your country and lead you and others who are young that you assert will soon be put in forefront in terms of being candidates and so forth? Why look to him with confidence, the kind of confidence you exude about having a bright future and the party having a bright future? Why?
Well, first, he has the experience. And even though I spoke about the young persons coming up to the forefront to gain the experience, you can't gain it without someone there to help you along the way. And I think that's the first thing that has me excited about him still offering himself, because this is a sacrifice he's been in for a number of years, and to still offer himself to the party and to the leadership is good for us to get that sort of experience needed. He's one of the few that's left in government now in the opposition who have the experience. We also have the Honorable Glenys Hanna Martin, who has the cabinet experience as well. And so it's good to have both of them around to help us along the way. Another thing is, if you look at how he's managed himself throughout the party time in transition, he's been someone who you can look to for being, you know, in orderly. He likes things to be managed in a certain way, in how he runs the meetings and timing. And so it's just something that can bring some type of structure to you in your life as wanting to aspire to be a leader and a politician. Looking at how he runs things and his expectation and his experience is what I think I can pull from him until that day when I decide to offer myself, if I decide to offer myself, and then I think I can use that experience later on.
Okay. What influences you as a newcomer? Well, you talked about that earlier, but I guess what I want to ask is, what confidence do you have that you will play a meaningful role, and others like you, but you in particular in this instance, in shaping this new PLP to serve the country the way you think it ought to serve?
I think for me, it's the people. And I think some of our base would have said we lost that. We lost that common touch of the common man, being there and understanding what their needs are, what it is that they would want from their government, and what is it that they expect it to happen in their country. And I have some of the same requirements. And so if I am requiring my government to do a certain change in the system of how the Bahamas is run for me and my family, then I would expect the same to happen in a leadership capacity for those who look to me to make it happen. And so bridging that gap and helping those along the way.
Let's speak, before we look at the future, to the magnitude of the PLP's defeat a few months ago. When you look at the magnitude of that defeat, in which how the PLP was thrown out of office, some in your party feel like it's not a big deal. The party just lost and you just get back up and you go again. If I hear you correctly, you seem to think that there is a very strong message there. What is your sentiment? What is the takeaway for you from that defeat? What's the core takeaway?
I think when I analyzed everything that happened May 10th, and some of the messages you would have heard from the Bahamian people, I think a lot of it had to do with relatability. I don't think the base that we look to, that we're supposed to assist, that we have in our philosophy, were able to relate to our system of governance, or maybe some of our plans, or how we would have executed them. I think we lost that attachment to them. The people who we were working for didn't understand what it is that we were doing. So even if you think you're doing something great, if the people don't feel the benefit of what you're doing, if they felt left behind or neglected or some type of discourse from you as a leader, you're still not being effective. And that's what I think the main thing that we lost, is that connection and that relatability to those who placed us there to work for them.
As a young person involved in the front line of your party and the country in offering what you do, opposition representation is significant in helping to keep a government on its heels. How do you speak to people at large, but especially your generation, who are more impatient than the much older generation? How do you speak to them, those who say, look, the PLP is just a corrupt organization? Some would draw reference to the fact that many government ministers for the first time got, some were put before the courts and others, charged, of course, and then other incidents and allegations, which we don't get into on this show, but we're just mentioning that these are facts, they happen. How do you speak to then the fact that there is a perception that the PLP is just corrupt And so for those younger persons who were bought into that view, they might not be inclined, notwithstanding persons like yourself coming forward, to be interested in wanting to be a part of your movement. What do you say to them?
Well, first off, I don't really get into that conversation of what they label us to be, that corruption talk, because nothing has really been proven, and justice must take its course. And so for those members, you just continue to keep them in prayer and hope that the best happens, for the end result happens for them, and it works out. But in terms of what I would say to persons looking from the outside looking in, is that we have done things in this country to better the lives of Bahamians. We've implemented changes in the system to assist in uplifting, upbuilding our country, building our people. We've brought in systems like BAMSI, we've put in place the NHI, and these systems that we were putting in isn't nothing unfamiliar to other countries. Persons are benefiting from the same systems that the PLP brought to this country.
Are you a believer in that?
Well, I lived under VAT for about 4 or 5 years in England, and I had to pay it regardless as a student.
Do you think it was wise for the PLP to implement that?
I don't want to get into this back and forth discussion. Is it being beneficial now to the country? Because it's already here. So whether I thought it was wise or not, are we benefiting from the implementation of that? Did we educate well enough? Probably not, because I can see from the last election that many didn't understand the purpose of that or the intention of that and what it was supposed to do, and the changes to different duties and different taxes that would have come from that after the years of it being embedded in our tax system. And so the idea of that, you're not supposed to feel it. You're not supposed to feel it. It's a consumer tax that's supposed to be already capped in the cost. So that's the first thing. We didn't educate properly on implementing it. But is it benefiting the country? Is it benefiting the people? Are some burdens being lifted? If it's done right, after a few years, it should.
Okay. Many people disagree with you, but I want you to take the last closing seconds in simply speaking to our country and to your generation of the future Bahamas that you want to be a part of shaping.
The future Bahamas that I want to be a part of is ensuring that the Bahamian people, whether they're upper class, whether they're middle class, whether they're lower class, their lives are changing for the better. I think that's what the most of our electorate has been requesting of each and every government. Don't talk the talk, walk the walk. We want changes that will benefit us, that we will feel home. We want reliable energy, something like that. Low cost energy, things that will actually make our lives better. When we go to the grocery store, we want to spend less for more. So these changes that you've promised, anything that you've put in your plans, make sure it's effectively changing the lives of Bahamians for the better. This is our country. And as we live in it, we should benefit and we should live well. And that's what I want, that type of country.
And on behalf of the Bahamian people, I am going to be here, if your government is fortunate enough to get in office, to hold you to that mark.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Senator, for coming and sharing with our viewers today. On behalf of all of us here at Nation Building, I want to thank you once again for watching. Have a great week and stay tuned for the next edition of Nation Building. You're tuned into Nation Building. I'm your host, Winston Pinnock.
And I said that anybody who challenges me on that, the first thing I ask them is, give me the example. Where is it? Do you have the evidence?
Don't do the crime. This is what you must do. In other words, you have to provide opportunity.
We still manage to keep education growing, to keep the economy afloat. No banks failed. Crime reduced.
City Services invested another $1 million in their facility.
You know, Martin Luther King says, the only thing that counts is the content of your character.